Hello there and welcome to the Star Wars Showcase YouTube channel. Today we're working on a Star Wars adjacent project as I'd like to give you some tips and tricks to build out your very own Aliens Colonial Marines. Let's take a look. So I'll get into some more detail here in a moment, but up on the screen we'll have a quick look at the completed fire team that I have assembled here. And the, genesis of putting these all together here really came about because I played like 100+ hour of Aliens Fire Team during the pandemic, as that really just became like a comfort game for me. And I wanted to kind of immortalize my little team and was disappointed by the current NECA offerings, which I always find to be kind of brittle and not very articulate. So using some G.I. Joe action figures, as well as some paint and some 3D printed parts, I've put together a little team that I'd like to detail for you so that you can build out squads of your own. Now, the fun part about building out your own fire team is the fact that there is a ton of different concept art and inspiration that you're able to draw from all of the different Aliens projects going back years now. And in all of these different media in which we see Marines, we get different color schemes, we get different gear. I mean, a lot of the same hallmarks are always going to be there, things like the pulse rifle and the smart gun and stuff like that. But for the most part, you can really find what you like best, what you're able to build, what you can do with, your skills, your talents, your abilities, and put that all together to make a squad that is very much your own. For my projects here, in addition to the aforementioned G.I. Joe figures, I also turned over to our friends at Gridiron Studios for some awesome 3D printed parts, which I will detail for you a little bit later in the video, but these guys are a fantastic mom and pop operation. I've had the pleasure of meeting them in person, and they are not only the kindest folks, but they are doing all kinds of incredible stuff with 3D printing and action figure accessories, so I highly recommend you check them out. All right, let's get into our workshops for the beginning of this project. And as you can see, I have taken the action figures that I have selected that I'll be making into my fire team and stripped them down to just the base parts here. And what I've done is taken a matte sealant, which is kind of like in a spray can. I've taken that outside and given everyone a once-over of that sealant layer so that the paint that we're about to put on sticks. Without that initial primer layer, your paint will often smudge or not stay, in the place that you like, or pool up kind of funny. So make sure you've always got that initial primer layer down first. And for my demolition heavy as well as my gunner, I wanted to do a little bit of a camo effect here. So I began things with a little bit of paint stippling. And this is a technique where you take a little bit of paint on kind of an older beat up brush and just kind of do this dabbing effect like you see on screen. And with that older brush, with all the bristles kind of pointing in every which direction, and as you kind of randomly pat them on, you'll create this more blotchy effect that really lends itself better to camouflage as opposed to actually trying to draw out those individual lines with a fine tip brush. When everything comes together and you begin to stack colors on top of each other, the overall effect is really nice. It looks very natural, and it looks less like you were trying to make camouflage, and more that it's just like you threw a bunch of different colors Jackson Pollock style onto your canvas. So you can choose personally how many different tones you'd like to use for your camouflage. I initially went for this forest green base layer, and I wanted 3 different colors to go along with things on top of that. So you can see that my completed product here has a little bit of that kind of darker stone gray, a light brown, and then that tan. So steps for these initial Marines are first getting that green base layer down, once our primer coat is in place, and then doing these stippling layers to give us this nice kind of camouflage soldier. So once all of that paintwork has been done and we add a couple of layers of varnish to really seal in that paint, we can then add some of our 3D printed accessories to build out our figures. So up first here I have our gunner, who has been made from a G.I. Joe classified grunt. And I really like the grunt figure because, like his name suggests, he is very just, middle of the road, your average soldier, that once you add up this paint and this detail to, looks very good as a generic trooper. And so the 3D printed armor, this coming from Gridiron Studios, has that really awesome removable knife accessory, this kind of vest here, which is made of a little bit more of a flexible plastic, allowing you to fit it right over the top of his head, and then has, some cool accessories like the shotgun shells that pop out there with that really cool red, and some paint work that Gridiron Studios does as well. And so this is, as far as 3D prints goes, I think top tier in terms of overall quality, as well as feel. I think Gridiron does fantastic work with all of these different products that they offer. This helmet here that you've got up on the screen as well has a little bit of flexibility to it as well. It fits very comfortably on the soldier's head, and you don't have to worry about that paint scrubbing off or smudging or anything like that. The pulse rifle that they've put together is quite ingenious here, as it's actually two individual pieces that fit together to form our very iconic Aliens pulse rifle. I think my favorite part about this is the fact that the handle for this particular weapon just fits well in hands. If you've played around with a bunch of action figures, oftentimes the handles on these accessories are too big to fit naturally in a figure's hand, but with our G.I. Joe figures, the trigger finger is actually able to access things, and it fits very comfortably, very naturally in his hands here to complete the look. Up next, we have our Fire Team Pilot, who I've put together from a G.I. Joe classified CoverGirl figure. And this figure right here is really just a straight repaint of things, where the under kind of jumpsuit has been given that same army green as the other figures, and then her bomber coat I have given a little bit of a darker gray just to match some of the different concept art that I had found. So in terms of overall lift, relatively easy to assemble this figure, but I've also included this pilot's helmet coming from Gridiron Studios. This helmet was actually available initially in blue, so I gave things a quick repaint just to match a little bit more of the look for the bomber jacket, and then added the close encounter shotgun here, which actually comes included with the gunner set, that vest that we showcased earlier. So that was an extra accessory that I thought might work well for kind of fast talking pilot type to have, stashed there in the cockpit with them. So shotgun and helmet here are coming together with the repainted CoverGirl to give us a nice pilot here. And I think I'm actually going to go back and put some decals on that helmet as well, just to give the figure a bit more personality. And finally, we have our Smart Gunner, the demo or the heavy here. And this kit here from Gridiron, which includes that hat that I've just removed, as well as the vest and the big old smart gun here, is really awesome, not only in terms of its 3D print quality, but some engineering ingenuity that comes together to make this piece that can move around and have hinges, which is not really a common fixture in 3D printing quite yet. So our base figure here is a G.I. Joe rock and roll. I picked him because, one, I liked the tattoos that he's got, but two, he's also kind of this bulker, bigger, heavier guy, which I thought would fit that Smart Gunner archetype. The hat that he comes with has this cool little targeting fixture that pops down over the eyes and is just like a baseball cap turned backwards like they have in the original Aliens. The hat itself doesn't fit 100% on some of these bigger headed figures. You can kind of get things at an angle like you see I've done here. But Gridiron also offers an equivalent, which is just like a headset with that targeting fixture. So you can turn to that as well. But looking here at the smart gun itself, you can see there is a ton of detail on this guy. My favorite part is the little adios on the side there, a la Vasquez. But this is a really awesome print. There's a lot of work being done here. And coming with that larger weapon is this hinged fixture arm that allows the gun to actually be mounted into the vest itself and still have some movement and articulation. And like I mentioned earlier, you don't see a lot of this kind of stuff in 3D printing right now. Oftentimes it's just one solid piece. And so seeing everything come together here is really cool. I hope we see this technique in practice more often here, as the ability to take composite or disparate parts and to connect them with an actual moving, hinge and axis there, I think just offers you the ability to do a lot more with your prints. So you can see on screen right now, I'm kind of playing around with things a little bit to get the articulation the way I like it. When Vasquez used her smart gun in the movie, she would often hold it up in that kind of like, parallel to herself pointing towards the sky form, and then of course the classic, perpendicular fire from the hip mode. So with this swivel hinge, you're able to get both of those poses here. It does take a little bit of moving things around. You still want to be gentle with things, as this is plastic and not metal parts that we're using here. But with a little bit of work, you're able to get all of those really great poses together. So I'm kind of gushing a little bit, but I really can't speak higher of this individual set here, as I think this is what you dream of when you're talking about, Aliens action figure, is being able to nail this kind of thing right here. So big props to Gridiron, and if you're making your figures, I highly recommend this, as I think between the Smart Gunner, between that kit that comes for your normal grunt, as well as some extra accessories to build out pilots, means that you've got a very unique and very diverse fire team that you can make. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you are a fan of this project, if you've got tips or tricks for making fire teams of your own, or if you have thoughts about other accessories outside of Gridiron that might lend itself well to making a project like this. So thank you so much everyone for watching. If you were a fan of this video, please make sure to check out some of the other playlists on the channel here, as we do have other content for making action figures of your own, as well as reviews of some of our existing Hasbro action figure offerings. So check them out.